and welcome to the Stockholm Institute of Sports Science podcast. This week we're joined by Jon Wiggins. Jon is a former swimmer. He was competing for England in Team GB in the 80s and then moved into professional cycling in the 90s. Jon's been working now for over 20 years though in sports practice and research, working with cycling aerodynamics is one of his kind of main topics. But what we'll be talking about mostly today is nutrition, which is his other key area that he's working on. Jon's working with Secret Training currently, which we'll talk about quite a bit during this episode. So hopefully you'll enjoy it, and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Thanks. Do you think things like the Super Sapiens kind of thing, because you were doing some work with that as well, do you think that will then start to improve like the market education for people? Like they'll start to see that there is a difference, like it's a measurable thing rather than a subjective feeling for them?
I think what the most important aspect about continuous glucose monitoring is that you have to do it regularly.
Yeah.
And you have to, I mean, it's not like just getting the sensor for 2 weeks. So if I see the athletes that I work with, we're definitely spread over a 3 or 4 month period in a preparation period. So it's a longer term analysis, and you have to, you must isolate products. So you must see for every individual athlete how the gut uptake is crucially important to understand their individual protocol and their individual effect that has, for example, the fructose ratio, how isomaltulose has an important effect of slow release with fat oxidation. It's a key. It's a super important stage in glucose performance monitoring, continuous glucose monitoring. And that is, I think that's the key to it, basically. I mean, we did a smart initiative when I did the first Q camps, where we used the sensor.
Yes, that's kind of the one when I joined along.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were basically isolating. I knew exactly what we were giving as nutrition, and we worked with slow release in that period as well. And it was interesting to see in aerodynamics with energy efficiency.
Yes.
So that was key, and an output of kilojoules as an energy output. So that was important to be able to try to correlate that data, quantify it. Yeah.
And that's the training mix and the slow release.
That is the training mix. Yeah, that's training mix. Yeah, that's definitely a very, very strong product. Yeah.
Because that, I think, with the isomaltulose, it's still, I think, here definitely something that people haven't really heard of much, particularly. But in terms of like how it actually works as a slow release, what's it actually doing with that? Like, how does it function?
Well, isomaltulose is a chemical binder. Basically, it splits the glucose and the fructose, and it binds and slow releases into the bloodstream, into the gut. So it's that's a key element of isomaltulose, is that how it slowly releases, and how much energy you get. So that's key importance, definitely, towards insulin and how your liver is operating. Yeah.
And then you're not getting that same spike in the blood sugar levels.
Yeah.
You
can, if you isolate it correctly. Of course, every athlete is different, how they have breakfast or when they take a coffee. So you really must isolate. You must know exactly when you're using the isomaltulose and what is done before.
Yes.
And then, but
it's not in isolation otherwise.
You can see it very clearly in a training program, but obviously specifically in fat oxidation training. So that's then it's very clear to how it's fueling the ride, basically. Because the objectives that we try to stimulate now in training is basically the using and optimizing the right fueling, that we try to have fat oxidation in the training ride, especially in endurance program, as far as possible into the ride before we use faster sugars. So,
yes. Yeah. And kind of getting the body adapted to using those fat stores.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This is key to this is a good example of this type of product. And you should in a way have a, like you have a periodization in your training. If you do aerobic power, or if you do anaerobic capacity or aerobic capacity, or you do long slow distance, every training protocol should adapt to a different carbohydrate protocol as well per hour. So if it's fat oxidation, we try to ride on lesser grams per hour.
Yeah.
And then if it's a harder, more intensive trainings, then we try to train the gut with a more of a beta fuel, a big energy product.
Yeah, and kind of getting the gut ready to use that when it's needed.
And it's this trainable variation that you make the biggest adaptations.
Yes, rather than kind of just on race day throwing in 90 grams of carbs an hour and hoping it works.
It doesn't work. The stomach spasms at that moment, it will not. But actually, it doesn't take anything up at that moment. So,
yeah, it just goes straight through you.
Or you throw up.
Yeah. And is that kind of like, so with the differences between secret training and some of the brands, like, is that kind of one of the key differences you would say in terms of like what secret training is doing sort of differently in terms of some of the other brands that maybe aren't putting so much effort into the content?
Well,
like content is.
Yeah, you're right in saying, I mean, it's just touching really the top of the iceberg, really, because the quality and the quality of the product, the quality of the multidextrin that we use, the quality of the quality of the protein, the whey, and that's all. That's very much the strong point of secret training.
Yes, that all sugars aren't the same.
Yeah, the pharmaceutical grassroots, basically, of the chemistry behind, and the philosophy behind secret training, of how they develop and design the ingredients specifically, and the type of products that they use. So yeah, in that way, it's groundbreaking and always has been, always moving forward. Very much like the juice bar is also Palatino's isomaltulose product. It's also released. So yeah, I think also if you see how certain products, certain gels that we have as well, are complementing protein or amino acids gels together with a higher carbohydrate. I think it's certainly very, very positive in that way, how we're creative in innovation.
Exactly. And then it gives you kind of like those different products for different scenarios that you can use for training in that kind of periodized way, essentially. That you've
absolutely, exactly like exactly how we mention it. That's that from the very beginning, periodizing basically your training and making a parallel
between the physiological and nutritional sides.
Absolutely, yeah. The goals in I see at the moment, I see too much in general terms. There is a lot of let's say 60 grams of carbohydrate per hour, and there's a lot of this in basically easy training, but you shouldn't be doing this unless you're carbo loading for something.
That's too much, and you're not then training to oxidize the fats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it should be actually the reverse. If it's an easy day, or maybe a long slow distance ride, then you should be pushing your system to use the correct fueling, and not supporting it and making it lazy in how it uses sugars. So.
Yes, it becomes dependent on doing that. So then you can't do anything otherwise. Yeah. And that's where the slow release stuff then is useful to kind of wean you onto the fat oxidation almost, I guess, that you can kind of sort of still have some sugar, but you're not becoming too dependent on it.
Yeah, that's correct. But we have we have a different range. The range is not spectacularly massive that we have, but it's there is certain variation in it to create a correct periodization of your nutritional plan, definitely within your training. So,
you've got enough different sort of types of products within that to make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. Like we also have a very good it's actually a probiotic and that's also very good. These are and I think that's probably the most important aspect of nutrition, is to also be aware of your immune system and have a healthy gut. So this is a very popular product with a lot of our World Tour athletes, World Tour cyclists, and triathletes.
To kind of sort of maintain gut health and actually be able to process things when you eat them.
Yeah. Definitely through the winter period is a crucial product.
And I think especially with places like here where it's so dark and cold in the winter like that, keeping the immune system up is a huge part of being able to train consistently, and that's obviously the big thing you're aiming for, is not having like 2 weeks off here and there for being ill.
No, it's true. And we have other products also, and not only next to the beta fuel products, our big energy products, a high gram carbohydrate gram, but we also have like a race maize as well. So it's also, that is again another highly branched chain carbohydrate. So that's muscle glycogen. That's also.
Is that what you're recommending for like that back end of a race kind of thing? Is like the kick
also 95 gram. Carbohydrate per hour. So that's definitely a product that we try to push in the races. That's good on the stomach as well. So
it's still easy to process with the quality of the sugars that you're using.
Because it's zeros or very small sugars. So it has a super ultra low osmotic pressure. And the solution. So definitely towards the stomach, it's very kind, very kind to the stomach. Put it that way. Yeah.
So it's easy to get through into the bloodstream from.
Definitely. And also, I think that product is also a neutral flavor as well. So you can add flavors, or you can, for example, add a hydro tab to it, which is flavored or something like that.
Just to give you some personal preference in the
Well, the hydro tab is quite interesting when you add it. It's because of the salts that it has in it as well. So keeping well hydrated is super important with the correct amount of salt release or loss that you would have in hot weather. So
you can kind of mix those two together for a double effect to that.
Or for example, one bottle of, which is also really important for the stomach, is that you change. You go with a protocol that has different objectives in the race. So it could be that you start with a big energy, but then you know that your gut is going to be quite fatigued, and then you have a small transition in the way that you take salts on hydro tabs, and you let your stomach rest a little bit more before you take another, for example, the race maize, for example.
When you kind of sort of push it again at the end when you just need everything.
And then you can get some faster gels in when you're pretty much you're doing on the run, that you can take it, your body can take it.
Would you use kind of different strategies though, obviously with the cyclists and the triathletes and stuff that you're working with? Or
definitely. The biggest difference with cycling, because we're in a peloton, I think what is now more and more the trend, and you see that in the big stage races, is protecting the leader, protecting the number one rider in your team that is going to approach the final and take faster sugars then. So he go, and it is a little bit like the talented athletes with the big VO2 max. Those guys, they seem to also be much more efficient, and use their fat oxidation much further into the race than others. So they come into their faster sugars much later as well. So
then you're going to have different fuel strategies for the different riders on the team depending on their role in the day.
And you can in a lot of, obviously you've got the swim as well, and it's quite an interesting one in the triathlon, because you've got somebody that's a very good competitor, a very good swimmer. Obviously they've done a lot of carbo loading before to the event, so I wouldn't stress too much about trying to get that last carb, the last
squeezing a gel in as you're sort of standing on the beach.
Better to get a good swim in, and then on the bike get the fueling right on the bike. yeah,
But then for like some of the athletes that are less good with the swim, like that are taking maybe like an hour and 20 hour and a half or something for the long course swims,
yeah,
like what would, because obviously they're not then getting an opportunity to fuel during that time. Like,
yeah.
would that be more just about the importance of like the preloading stuff that they're going to have before the race?
Yeah, preloading is super important. Also for the top athletes, preloading
Yeah.
is everything.
Yeah.
But you could probably risk being a little bit more carbo loaded than the top, because the top swimmers, they're giving pretty much, it's a fast
A high
pace.
intensity for them,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Whereas
yeah,
the back end's maybe just getting through the swim.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But then kind of really focus on trying to sort of bring the levels up again once you get out on the bike.
yeah, 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 absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely not a exponential line. It's very much a way
Fluctuation.
you've definitely got to have understand your highs and your lows in the racing, and be able to also appreciate and also be patient, have a lot of patience actually with your guts and with how you're feeling, so that getting I think the most challenging part for triathlon is being able to do the dress rehearsal and get it right.
Yes.
And time again be consistent with your nutritional plan as well.
Yeah.
And once you've got something that works well for you, maybe you can maybe start adding to it
Tweak
and
something from there. Yeah.
increasing the amount. So that's important.
But I guess that then comes back to what you were saying before about the importance of practicing these things in training. Like, that you're in the same way as like knowing what your power is going to be on the day. Like you should know those things beforehand because you've practiced in training. You know how your body should respond to those things, and obviously, like race day things don't always go to plan, but you should have a good idea by that point in time because you've been practicing and training your body to protect fuel.
I mean, I come out of swimming, so I know in the 80s we definitely didn't on 5 kilometer swim sessions we didn't have nutrition, so it was pretty important. Yeah, in those days we had dextrosol tablets and things like that. So if you felt low, but it was just your body adapted to it. So you were really fat burners for
completely.
sure.
Yeah, because you just had to be at that point. Yeah, if you don't take anything in, your body has to do something.
Yeah, and that is basically how swimming also changed in a lot of ways, because once there became much more knowledge and nutrition, and then also obviously speed suits and everything that helps buoyancy and being higher in the water. But it just became the 400, which was more middle distance in a way, when in the 80s. Became the 400 was ridiculously fast now.
Became a sprint instead.
Yeah, and the 200 is they're definitely a sprint event more. So carbo loading and using the right faster sugars at that moment is crucial. But in training, I think still being optimizing and getting a right base balance in fat oxidation is still massive in swimming. At that moment, to get your base endurance, it goes together. It's very similar in all endurance sports. So.
Yes, you're still applying a similar demand on the cardiovascular system. Yeah, you're asking it to do the same things.
Yeah. In track racing, we have that also in a long marathon or a points race. It's
you've got to be aware of it. It's a longer duration to sustain.
Yeah, and see that your salt levels. That's probably one of the most important. Your sodium and everything is correct.
With like because of the
minerals,
the amount of perspiration and stuff with the indoor as well.
Yeah, because they're getting the tracks. They're getting basically is getting hotter and hotter in the races. Also, the triathlon races.
Yes,
it's very similar. So being able to anticipate that in the days in advance, and also doing being confident that you can what you're doing. I think the documentary with Garner is quite a good one.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to watch that, actually.
Yeah, he didn't do too many hours in preparation to it. He always broke it down, but he did do an effort at 1 hour just to make sure that he would be able to hold on to.
It was feasible.
The position in aerodynamics was crucial. That he didn't break out of position because the comfort was not possible to hold anymore at that pace. So
yes, that you needed to know it was sustainable enough.
Yeah, and that was the same with their nutrition as well. So yeah,
Yes, that they
everything.
knew because they've tested enough beforehand to know that it's possible. Yeah,
Yeah, and 2.5 kilos of ice slush
yeah,
eating to stay
to
cool.
try and drop the core temperature.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is incredible, and that
yeah,
also takes an effect on your gut, of course, with all the too much cool,
yeah, for sure.
yeah. It's only a certain amount, and that that's trainable, of course. Very much like it is trainable to take a big or larger amounts of carbohydrate per hour.
Yeah,
It's very individual though. Yeah,
yes, it's something that you have to sort of dial in on a personal level.
yeah, definitely.
But then where do you, is it like when you're with all of these different sports, is it mostly cycling that you guys are working with, or do you have is there like a sport in particular that you do see more people working with?
Myself personally,
It's like
or,
more
or
secret training in
secret.
yourself, or yeah, I think for yourself, I guess it's mostly with the cycling at the moment, or is
Yeah,
it?
secret training is quite recognized in the world of cycling.
Yeah, it's kind of where
Um,
I'd seen it
yeah,
from. Yeah,
yeah, definitely. I would say that was probably the number one sport,
yeah,
and then triathlon as well,
it's
because
kind of
the branch that we have in Dubai, they're quite
okay.
triathlon based. So
Yes,
yeah, is well recognized in the warmer climates. So
yeah,
yeah,
interesting,
yeah, yeah.
nice. But yeah, I think that was most of the questions I had written down, which is
Okay, all
uh,
right. Yeah, you can always shoot some. If you think of anything more, send me an email.
absolutely. No, I think it was, yeah, like you say, just to give us some um, information to kind of pass along to customers to kind of explain the purpose of secret training, why we've chosen to work with it. Like that it is something different, and it's not like price and flavor aren't the main considerations necessarily if you want performance.
Yeah,
Like
it's absolutely the number one priority for us at Secret Training is the quality of raw material.
yeah,
That's
yeah, which I think is really overlooked from a consumer perspective. Is
yeah,
yeah, I think it's something that like the market generally just glosses over, so people aren't aware that it's a thing to consider.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. As the cheaper the products, you can 100% pretty much guarantee it. The cheaper the product will be on the shelf
Yeah,
in the supermarket, the more the cheaper the quality of your product, in the ingredient itself. So
yes, exactly. Like it's
you
a
have to be
direct
careful with that.
relationship. Yeah,
Yeah. I think probably for a hydro tab, a salt tab, that there's not really a big issue, but then the price differences are not that
it's
massive.
pretty minimal at that point. Yeah, exactly.
But when you go to a quality product like a race maze or a big energy product, beta fuel, then
You've got much more chance of upsetting your stomach
quality is
with something.
crucial.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and then it's kind of and like a race ruining situation.
yeah, yeah. Oh, for sure.
And you've
Yeah,
spent sort of a fortune on training, getting to the race, all the preparation, the hours, the months,
yeah,
and then it's uh, a simple thing to go wrong, but
yeah,
kind of really screws everything up.
yeah. And something that has always puzzled me, because I've never been a triathlete, but I see that they quite often in a race they're going very well, and then suddenly they hit the wall. So it's kind of a mindset. When you're going very well, it should be an indicator. It should be a red flag at that moment to see it, and as an anticipation to keep going, to be consistent and sustainable at that moment. And
Yeah,
for some reason, because they feel so good that suddenly they forget everything of taking the right fueling on at that moment, and
yeah,
they come in a zone that suddenly is they lose the focus on their plan.
exactly. And
Quite
then
often.
by the time you realize you've kind of gone past that point, it's too late to.
No, there's no way back.
You've kind of already gone over the wall.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I think, like you say, that comes back to like training practices and just getting into those good habits that you just then it's something you don't really have to think about doing. It's a part of riding the bike or a part of the run. It's just
Yeah.
something you do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think your cooling strategy as well. I think when it's a very hot climate, I think your pre-cooling and your per-cooling is super important. What you should be trying to achieve, because once you're cooked, you're cooked. There's also no way back.
Yes, it's, and with that kind of the cooling stuff is like the slushy kind of thing. Is that like the answer generally, or?
Yeah, definitely. That is probably we're also busy with different cooling opportunities within the nutrition programs we have. So definitely you can see that on our website as well. We do have some ideas around on the cooling side, but definitely having your drinks cooled helps a lot.
Yeah.
The process. But there are some other opportunities where you can try to trigger your brain to think that it's cooling as well. More comfortable.
Which is maybe some of those that are a bit more feasible if you're doing like a long course and you can't get kind of special nutrition or something, and you just have to, like, the drinks are going to be too hot by the time you drink them anyway. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there are some things on the website that we can relate to, the peppermint, for example.
That's what I was wondering if that was.
That was also a trigger. It's also one of the triggers for understanding a menthol, and trying to stimulate a better understanding around cooling. But if you cool that, if you have that drink cooled, it also obviously the effect is even better. But it's not about what is really important, which is quite misunderstood, is you're not trying to be cooler than your core temperature is at that moment. So let me say that it's 38, then it's about sustaining 38 for as long as possible before it becomes 39 and 40, because
so you're trying to slow the increase rather than
and that's the key to, I think, probably all sports coming in, all Olympic sports coming into Paris, to be honest. It's about will be one massive topic about cooling. And if you don't get it right, it will be difficult to be
competitive at that point.
Be competitive, definitely.
And especially coming from like Scandinavia, and being used to kind of our current temperatures. It's something you can't really acclimatize to as well, I guess. Unless you spend the whole winter somewhere sunnier. Which is looking likely on our side at the moment. So.
But saying that, it's still when I see the biathletes and the cross-country skiers, core temperature is very high.
I guess
in those conditions. So
it's like the aerobic requirement is huge, and then obviously I guess kind of pretty wrapped up, so that would make sense.
The aerobic engine is definitely cooking it in those sports as well. So
no, that makes total sense. I hadn't really considered with some of the winter sports, but
it's true.
Interesting. Cool. But thank you very much though.
No problem. No problem.